I always thought in my life that I would be in a nonprofit sector. I was always like, I just want to do something that really gives back to people.
I kind of transitioned into working with older adults. Then I started realizing, like, man, I love the music of this generation. I was born definitely in the wrong decade of music, for sure.
Welcome to the Empowered Elder Podcast.
Moving. It's something we all experience, but few of us truly enjoy. Because moving isn't just about boxes and furniture. It's about memories, change, and sometimes letting go. And when it comes to downsizing or helping an aging loved one move, it can feel overwhelming. In fact, according to the National Association of Senior and Specialty Move Managers, nearly 10,000 Americans turn 65 every day, creating a growing need for compassionate, professional help with life transitions.
So today we're sitting down with two women who've made it their life's work to make that process a little easier and a lot more heart-centered. Cierra Olmsted and Paige Rabon are the co-owners of A Move Handled with Care, the senior move management company that's based right here in Colorado that helps families organize, downsize, and transition into a new home with dignity and grace.
Cierra brings a background in business and senior living, while Paige, a former music therapist, brings a deep understanding of the emotional side of change. Together, they lead a team that proves moving can actually be handled with care.
And in this conversation, we're going to talk about what a move manager really does, how to help aging parents or loved ones through those big transitions, and why downsizing is as much about heart as it is about home.
If you've ever felt overwhelmed by stuff or unsure where to start when it comes to moving or decluttering, this episode is for you.
And we're your hosts, Tasha Beckman and Nicole Robilotto, and this is the Empowered Elder Podcast, where we talk about home, heart, and the next chapter of life.
Let's get started. Cierra and Paige, a business graduate and a music therapist, may sound like an unlikely pairing. How did you find your way into senior move management?
You want to go first?
Sure.
Go ahead.
So I found my way into senior move management because I used to work in senior living. So I always knew growing up, I kind of wanted something of my own. I came from parents who were entrepreneurs, and so just watching them, and I always knew I wanted something. And so I started volunteering at Christian living communities. And I ended up from there, they had a marketing position open, and I was like, great, this is right up my alley. And so I got hired there. And during the time that I was working for Claremont Park, I met the founders of A Move Handled with Care. And so they were moving residents in, and I loved the aspect of helping people take a very chaotic situation into not chaos. And so it just kind of fell into my lap that they were ready to move on. They had started the company as a post-retirement company, and they were just really ready to kind of pass the buck off. And so it just was the perfect scenario, and not perfect scenario. I was pregnant with my second daughter at the time. And I was like, this is a great timing. I'm going to have a baby. We're going to have a business. It's going to be great. But it just really, everything really fell into place. And it just, it really spoke to me a lot. And I knew that it was something that I was passionate about, that I loved, that I could really make a difference is what I wanted to do.
When you were talking about being passionate about it, what was it that made it your calling? Like, what made it so special that you're like, you know what, this just feels right? Was there an experience that you had?
I don't know if it's so much an experience as I always thought in my life that I would be in a nonprofit sector. I was always like, I just want to do something that really gives back to people. But I never found something enough that I wanted to stick with it. But then after working with seniors and seeing that, I just knew that that was my calling. I just knew that it was a population of people that I want to work with, that I love to work with. My grandparents were still alive at the time. And so it wasn't a, well, I don't have any grandparents anymore. And I see these people kind of as my grandparents, but it was more like, oh, I'm just gaining more.
Nice.
Yeah.
Paige, how about you?
Well, I was a practicing music therapist for 12 years, and I did most of my career around kids with neurologic impairments. I was always in a clinical setting. And I was a military brat as well. So I was born, my dad was in the Air Force. So we moved around a lot. I've moved 17 times in my life.
Wow.
So that's, part of my nomadic, I guess, nature as well is that I've just moved in every which way, literally every which way, from a horse trailer to a van line to all the different things to our company moving us. That's my favorite. But I went back for my master's. I went to CSU for my undergrad, and then I came back to CSU, Colorado State University. I had a 2 and 4-year-old at the time, and I, very non-traditional student, and I started teaching in the program, and I really loved it. But I transitioned because of the teaching. I kind of transitioned into working with older adults. So I got really involved in the CSU has a really great Parkinson's group, and Parkinson's runs in my family, so I felt very connected to that. And then I started realizing, like, man, I love the music of this generation. I was born definitely in the wrong decade of music, for sure. And so I started working with seniors, and then I started working in dementia care, and I started, like Cierra, I was in senior living. So I transitioned into senior living, and I got to be a music therapist, but also a program director. And I same kind of thing, like I experienced a move handled with care. They came into our building, and every time they moved someone in, it was just such a better experience, because especially in memory care, where the familiar is so important, these people would transition in and I would just see them flourish faster, because it's a big transition coming from their home. And it was also really stressful for the adult children. And this was just something that a lot of times in memory care, we do those moves without the resident. It's one of the only moves we do without the resident. And it's because it's too stressful and they are very confused. So what we do is like for us now, even we take that photo inventory so that we're really creating what that looks like. And that was what I saw happen in our building. And I met Shelly, who I took her role. She was kind of on her way out and was like, hey, like, do you want a job? And, just the stars aligned, and it just made a lot of sense. And so I, joined it to kind of work from home. I needed some more, work-life balance in my personal life. And that was almost 8 years ago. So I think it lends itself well, because we both understand senior living. So we know what that side looks like. I think a lot of people think that we just decide on a date and we move people in, but there's a whole process to moving people into senior living. There's admissions, there's financial, all of the things that are kind of in the background, and we kind of understand what that process looks like. And then I also think too, my clinical background of working in complex situations and families and dynamics and this and that, that doesn't scare me. And so it's just a different utilization of my skills, I guess.
I love how everything just evolved, right? That it was a natural transition.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like the timing was right, like your back experience, your background, it just made it all, fit together. If there's somebody that has never heard of a move manager, how would you describe, like, why would somebody need a move manager?
Well, I'll take that for the other thing we've been kind of like playing with is, what move manager doesn't mean a whole lot to people. So what are those little things that have we've kind of changed, like, if you will, like our buzzwords, project management. So I think if you think of a move and all the different facets that will happen, we are the project manager of your move. So what that might look like, all the different pieces and vendors and things that might be involved. The other thing we always say is like concierge, because again, some things that you don't necessarily know you need until all of a sudden you need it. And that's what we do, is build a community of people and resources and vendors that get that project done. So I would say that concierge thing as well. And then what's the other one that we've been talking about, kind of kicking around?
Well, a lot of that also comes into it. Another buzzword, which isn't really new, is organization.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of people look at organizers and go, well, that's what I need. But that's what move management is as well, is really taking that project, that concierge style where it's very, you're looking at the expert to guide you. And then we're also taking the organization of it and keeping it all organized, not only on the process, but obviously also in your stuff. Right? Like we are, like Paige was saying earlier, we're taking pictures of everything. We're remembering how you're functioning in your home now, so that when we unpack you and set you up, then you are not having to totally relearn your environment, right? We're trying to set up your kitchen as best as possible as it was in your previous home. Now it's a new layout. But if you had a coffee bar, we're going to try to create that coffee bar again because you're still functioning. You still have those habits that you're just used to that we help to try to recreate.
It's pretty clear to me how you're different than a moving company. But how does a consumer know when they need a move management logistics company like you provide versus simply a moving company?
I think if they need services above and beyond heavy lifters in a truck is always what we say. When you need services above and beyond that, and it doesn't have to be as full service as some of our clients. Some of our clients will literally from A to Z want us to manage the whole thing. And I think that it doesn't have to be that big. I just did a presentation on Friday, a downsizing presentation, and we also do a lot of the prep work. So let's say you're not thinking of moving for 6 months or a year or whatever, but you know in your home, like maybe certain areas aren't functioning like you'd like them to, or you want to tackle the project before you physically move. Like you want to go through the memorabilia, you want to see what's in there, you want to be able to ask your kids and things like that. I think when you have jobs and projects that go above and beyond that, and I will also say, we talk about it all the time. Like we wouldn't recommend, and maybe it sounds like kind of counterintuitive, but like we wouldn't recommend movers without us. Does that make sense? And I think that's the other thing is if you want to manage that yourself, which we've all moved. I don't know how many times how many times have you guys moved in your lifetime? 4 times. So every time it just movers?
It was. I moved from across country, so it was.
Van line?
I wish I had a move manager.
Yeah. Was it?
Definitely.
For us, it was just us. Like friends, family, buy the pizza, the beer.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think
beg and borrow.
I think that's the reason we ask that is because that is a lot of what we think is it's got to be DIY and it has to be buy the pizza and the beer and you get your friends involved. But what we know is that it's not done. Well, it depends. It's not maybe done to like the best because sometimes we're willing to accept less when we're doing it ourselves. And then I think the other thing is it's not as efficient. So like you've got to take off work, you've got to, whatever it might be to get the job done. You're coming home from work and now you're packing. And so we free up that space for people to be able to utilize. So we always say we would love this. Our favorite like mind, we can't ever do it, but we would love to, is we'd love to move somebody all full service. And then we'd like to put all of it back in the house and we'd like to have that customer do it themselves. Because what we know is that if you trade your time, so if you have a full-time job, for example, your hourly rate is XYZ, even if it's a salaried position. If you took that same hourly rate that you're taking off of work and put that towards your move and did the whole thing, we always think that the number is the same because it always is like when you try to do it on the cheap and you try to do it on the, whatever it is, it's your time, you're sacrificing something or it's the quality, like the death by moving in Amazon boxes. While people think that's really efficient, what we know is for our movers, it's very inefficient and it can really slow them down because little tiny boxes are hard to put in a truck. They're hard to make sure they don't fall. Things like that. So we know that's why, just like any professional, you're just going to get a different like level of efficiency.
So don't put those remote controls in one little small Amazon box is what you're saying, right?
we hate, like Amazon boxes, they're always weird shaped. They never stack well. There's always the long skinny one and then there's the short fat one and and it just doesn't stack well in a truck. Whereas when we use professional grade moving stuff or we use reusable like utility totes, ideally we're making the truck more efficient. It works better and it protects your stuff better.
You know how to pack it. Yeah. You know how to stack it.
Your friends will still be your friends at the end.
Correct.
Going that route.
Exactly. And no one's having back surgery because they moved you.
Is your industry regulated? Is there any type of, can you tell me a little bit about that and what that looks like?
It's a good question.
That's a really good one. And this is one that we actually struggle with a lot because our industry is not regulated. We do have regulations as far as our movers go. Like you have to have the CDOT number and a PUC number. And that's all more of a state regulated things for trucks hauling back and forth in and out of state and things like that. So that piece is regulated, but that is really more kind of a state thing. But as far as like the quality and the ethics that we have, we're not. But this is where And I say this is why it's frustrating, because we have gone the way that we help ensure our clients and others that we are really doing a great job is not only obviously we've been in business for 15 years, but we're a part of NASM, which is the National Association of Senior
and Specialty
Move Management. And what it is it's our national association. And so every year we have to prove to them that we hold the licenses that we have to hold in the state of Colorado. We have all of the insurances that we have to hold. And the other part that we go even above and beyond is that we do not have contractors. So anybody that works for a move handled with care is a W-2 employee. So that way they are held under our liability insurance. If there is anything that happens, they are covered. We do not have, just a contractor coming in, doing their own work, saying that they have insurance, and then maybe their policy lapse or whatever. That sets people up for a lot of risk, especially in this industry, because we are not only dealing with people's personal stuff. I mean, we find jewelry, cash, all of those things that are easily swipeable. Sure. And that is where we go above and beyond to protect ourselves and our employees too. We've had, especially working with the senior population, there's so many times where, you open up the nightstand and there's a big wad of cash, and we will go and hand it to, our clients and say, I found this. And 9 times out of 10, they'll go, oh, I totally forgot about that. And they do. And it won't be until a moment later that they recognize it. Or we've also had situations where they go, that's missing. And then we go, check here. And they open and that it's right there. And so that's where, by really vetting, doing background checks, having W-2 employees shows people that we really invest in our people so that we can stay above.
And then just one step beyond that too, within NASM, there are different levels of accreditation that you can get. We are very proud to say that we're the top of that. So we are A+ accredited, which means that we've gone through additional protocols to be able to show that we are a functioning business. Making sure we have employee handbooks, policy and procedure manuals. So we're actually running things. We have, expectations for ourselves and for our employees to carry out that work. And then I would say that the other thing too is, as far as we only partner with vendors that also carry those licensures as well. So that's the other thing too, is like, you may have your preferred mover, but that may not be what we feel comfortable doing. And so that's the other thing too, is we really try to keep all of that in-house. And when we refer somebody, it's because they've done good work and because we know what they stand for and things like that. Like, we have an operating agreement with the moving company that we operate with. So we understand where that insurance stops, where their insurance picks up. So on the back end, people aren't having to worry about, will my stuff be covered? That's already been vetted by us, because we're trying to mitigate that before we even step into your home.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And because you're with the National Association too, how does that come into play or help when you are having someone who's moving out of state or coming in from another state? Mm-hmm. How does that benefit, or what kind of relationships?
It's tricky. Moving out of state is it's its own beast, to be honest with you. And a lot of times it's a very expensive move. And so a lot of people end up going, like we were just talking, like the route of a van line, for example. And van lines have pretty strict rules and protocols as far as their insurance coverage. And one of the things that we know is that if we pack their belongings, it's considered packed by owner. And so when you pack your own stuff, it's not covered because you packed it. They can't guarantee what you did on the inside of it, which for some people is a deterrent. Because they want to make sure. And so then what they do, van lines will then get you to use their labor and their stuff to pack those things. And so sometimes it can whittle us out of a job. We do have other ways that we do it. So we do work with local vendors that will do door-to-door service. It sometimes is a more expensive route or option. We've also worked with pods and things like that, which all pods, no matter what you do, is considered packed by owner. And so a lot of people, they already know that that's the way that it's going to be. And so they're okay with that. And we just make sure that people understand when they're going out of state, what does that look like and how is that stuff insured? But then what we love about it is that we also belong to a national association. So if I'm moving somebody to Houston, Texas, we have some friends of ours that own a business there that we love and we know, and they're going to take really good care of our customers. So we job share. And that's one of the things that we love too, is that we are able to provide the same level of service on one end as we can the other without having to travel.
Mm-hmm. When you're helping a senior in transition, walk us through what that process looks like, from the first emotional phone call, maybe from a family member, to the move-in day, to, all the parts in between.
So It starts with that, the first phone call. Amy, who's our office manager, is amazing. And she handles all of those phone calls. And she's really good at taking in all the information and saying, okay, here's kind of the challenges that we're looking at right now. She'll send one of us out. So we do complimentary consultations. We've got 2 managers right now who primarily go out on those consultations. And really that first hour for the consultation is really just let's walk your house. Let's see what your challenges are. Let's see where we can start to help out. And 9 times out of 10, most people are calling because they are going to be moving. They know they're going somewhere within, 2 weeks to 6 months. So it kind of depends on how quickly we have to move. But then at that point, we just go through and walk and say, okay, hey, how about some sorting sessions? Let's start to sit down and go through stuff and start to really comb through different sections of your home so that we can help you decide what you should take with you and what you shouldn't take with you. We also leave them with great, like this downsize list of kind of what you should take to a downsized house that actually we created because we surveyed past clients and we said, okay, you've now moved. What would you take with you versus what did you take with you? Because most of it was like, they're like, nah, we don't need this anymore.
Yeah.
And
it's always too much.
So then we just kind of start to walk through the process and then, be able to leave them. Our goal when we leave a client's house is always to leave them with some kind of takeaway, meaning here's a full estimate, if that makes sense, of here's how much your move is going to cost from A to Z. We bid all of it. So we leave them with one price. They're not having to go out and look for different vendors and say, okay, you need this and this and this. If that is not feasible because they're either too far out or we don't really have enough scope to be able to do that, we at least want to leave them with, okay, well, let's do some sorting sessions. Let's start. And here's what I would propose. Let's do 6 hours. We usually try to do those in 3-hour increments. So 2 different sessions or 3 sessions or however many we think we need to get through. And so then we just kind of really walk them through that whole process and just try to listen to what do they need and where can we help? And that's where, while we would love every client to be full service, we do everything. That's not always the case. And that's where we will never back anybody into that corner. And the way that we've always bid and the way we teach our people to bid is I'm going to give you the full A to Z because I want you to have that top number. I want you to know how much this is going to cost. And if you feel like, the adult daughter is like, you know what, I can handle this. I can do this. Great. Now, you can check that line item off. And so you can kind of work backwards versus going, well, now I want to add more. Now I want to add more, right? Like when you get your construction bid, you're like, great, 50,000, I can do that. But then you're like, you start to add stuff and you're like, ooh, I don't know if we can go up to 100. It's always give that top and work your way down versus the other way.
You mentioned working with the adult daughter or the adult son. What happens in the process when the adult children are completely bought into the process and all of that, and the elder, not so much?
I will say the best thing is that complimentary consultation because 9 times out of 10, first of all, the client, the person moving is our client. And we always make sure that they feel in the driver's seat because I think that's the biggest push and pull when it comes to adult kids is the parent doesn't feel empowered to make their own decisions. And so we very much always try to push it back on the client of what is it that makes you feel comfortable? What is it that you want? And so we have a lot of that dialogue with them by making sure that we don't ever talk around them. We're always talking to them. There's a lot of times when we go into those consultations where it feels like the daughter wants to just talk around mom and no. So always asking a question we'll do a walk around and you can see the mom will pause at something and think about it. And we're always asked, well, tell us the story about this. And the minute you start to tell, because what we know is that the stories are why we hold on to the things because we think that if we get rid of the thing, the story dies and then it dies with us. But what we know is that by sharing the stories, that's actually how it continues on. And a lot of times in family dynamics, the adult daughter, whatever the case may be, adult daughter, adult son, no kids at all. It is difficult because we don't have, they have so much emotional stuff. Like my mom is so resistant to this and she's been a problem about this and her health is this. And so maybe they're already having a problem well, we don't have a problem, So when we walk in, it usually kind of diffuses the situation. That's why you hire somebody in those emotionally intense, avenues, is because you need that buffer. And so a lot of times we become, the mediator between the two. Not always the case, but a lot of times that can be. And then I think the other thing is that we try to have a plan of attack so that everyone comes back to the plan. Because sometimes the, adult child wants to take it off over here, or the mom wants to take it over here, and just really bringing it back to, this was the plan for today. So we didn't get to answer, but like the actual move itself, because you said like, what does that look like? A move for us locally for a senior is typically a 2-day process, which seems insane to many people. But what we know is that once you get going, you just gotta go, because the problem is when sometimes if we sort with people too far in advance, then they start collecting more things, or like if this was the table of all the things that are going to go, the mound keeps growing. And so what we know is when you are in motion, it feels better. And so I think that's the other thing too, is so we usually have some sort of pack and move day, and then there's the unpack, move, and actual unpack day. And once it looks like a lot of chaos, but we allow our clients to be part of the process. We allow their family to be a part of the process. And so once they kind of see everything flowing together, it usually, once it's going, it's better. And so that's the other thing too. And so we have to just be careful when we're dealing with adult family members, that at the end of the day, like whoever's paying the bill is our customer. And so we have to make sure that we're honoring what they need, what they want, and things like that. And I will say, 9 times out of 10, it's a good experience once we get into it. A lot of times we'll read the intake, headed to a consultation, and sometimes on the back end, we're like, oof, well, this is going to be a lot. But it's adding just a different dynamic because we are not in your family. And so it kind of just diffuses it. So, it doesn't happen all the time, but most of our clients, once we kind of get involved, they're like, they look at us as the professionals, and they lean on us for that assistance.
Right. Well, and two, I think to that point, once people get going, they might question the process because it's very emotional for them. But once we get going and they start to realize, oh, wow, they know what they're doing. We just packed, someone recently, and the husband was like sitting at the kitchen table watching Paige pack the pantry, and he was like, wow, that would have taken me 2 days and a lot of curse words. And, Paige did it in 30 minutes. And it's like, it's that, because you're just, and that wasn't emotional at all, but to the point, it just was like, they realize like, we know what we're doing, right?
And it's not our stuff. So I don't have an emotional attachment. I don't need to go through and touch, everything in there, because I don't have an emotional attachment. If you decided you're taking it, great, we're taking it. How do we make it fit? So I think that's the other thing too, is,
right.
I think that's why it works so much more efficiently than doing it yourself, because now, you're supposed to be packing the junk drawer, and like now all of a sudden you're like, well, are these batteries even good? And now you're checking the batteries, and does this pen even write? You're doing all of that rumination over the stuff, whereas we're just like, nope, it's coming. There's a joke in the moving industry. I don't know if anyone's been moved by a van line or had that kind of level of packing. They will pack your trash. Like they will put it in a box and they will send it to Ohio. And it's kind of a joke, but like we say that all the time, like if this is what you say is going to go, or it's going to go. Unless, we kind of get the green light or the okay to like, if it's expired, you can toss it.
We can toss it, yeah. And we're not going to pack the trash.
Yeah, no, we don't pack the trash.
What is clearly trash is trash.
Yeah.
And everything is so different. Like no two moves are alike.
Right.
So when you're looking at the emotional side, to have that experience and that way to know if maybe in the beginning, before you start the process, that maybe you have to take just an extra session or something to sit down with them because they might need a little extra hand holding. Does happen a lot, or do you feel that people, once they know the process, that they can kind of move forward?
Once they know the process, they start to move forward, because it's also one of those things where you start to build momentum that you kind of can't go back at that point. It's like, because then you've derailed the move and it's not going to happen. And we always say too, because we've been in this situation with our families, like Paige has moved her family, I have moved my family, and we're like, why did we not switch? She moves my family and I move her family because of those dynamics. Like all of a sudden, your mom's blowing in, that's the adult daughter, and you're like, Mom, and I'm like, now I get it. I totally get it. But it's that. It's like when someone comes in and tries to derail, or even the client starts to feel overwhelmed. I actually thought of this past weekend. I was talking with another vendor of ours, and I said, the best example that I can give is that people look at this and we're not the cheapest option to go by. Usually when people bid us versus movers, we're always more expensive because you're getting a higher level of service and you're getting more services. So, you go couch shopping and you look at the 2 couches and you're like, I want that one. And it's the expensive one. And you're like, you know what? We're just going to buy it. You buy it, you go home, and it doesn't come for a couple more days. So you have some buyer's remorse, right? You're like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't have spent that money. It gets delivered, you sit in it. And then after a while, you're like, this was worth it. And I think that a lot of times our clients, it's such not only a financial commitment, but obviously huge emotion. So they kind of have that where they sign our contracts. They say, this is going to be worth it. And then they do. They kind of have that emotional buyer's remorse because they're like, oh, I know I need to move. I want to move, but this is hard. Mm-hmm. And then the process gets going. And then it's kind of like, well, it's too late. The couch is at my door. I cannot turn it away. We keep going. They get into their new place and they're like, that was worth it.
Yeah.
That was worth every penny.
Well, and I think that's where too, we're different in the fact that we do have a full-time office person. So Amy is there anytime to answer those calls because she does get those calls. They call back and they're like, well, I know Paige said this during my consultation, but is that really what she meant? And she will walk them through the process again and again and again. And they also too, our clients have, I handle my business card. It has my personal cell phone number. So they love to call on the weekends and after hours. But it's one of those things where they have a connection to you to reassure them of what's happening. Can you make sure that the so-and-so has the schedule of events? I'm like, yep, it's already been emailed. It's already been sent. That's why you've been contacted. And they're like, oh yeah, I hadn't considered that. So there's somebody there to walk them through that process. And I think that's the other piece. Like when you hire movers, it's 3 guys in 1 truck and we'll be there and it's X amount of, there's no one to call and go, okay, well, so tell me exactly how do you prep the furniture? We will go through that. We'll tell you how we're going to prep the furniture. We will go in and identify certain furniture that gives us pause where we're like, this is a marble top. Let me tell you what I know about marble tops. I feel like we should maybe, do this, or this. So they know that we're talking about it. It's not sight unseen. We're looking at what's going on. The antique piece that we cannot replace, we were like, okay, well, let's think about, can it be taken apart? Does the back come off? Things like that. So that we're making sure that is, going to get to our final destination with, safety and security. And I think that's the other thing is they want someone to talk to. Mm-hmm. We laugh all the time that there's some very old school ways that we do business, but it's because our clients like it that way. We leave a paper estimate. We do have a digital version, but our clients prefer the paper. They want to look at it. They want to go over it again. They want to hold it. They want to put it in a file that we're going to move. There's things about that we know who our client base is. And so sending a text message may not be as, useful. Sending an email may not be as useful as picking up the phone. And so much of our industry and so much of our world right now, nobody wants to talk to their customers. Nobody does. Everybody,
so much time.
Exactly.
Right.
It's just, we know you guys inherently, the amount of time that realtors spend with their clients. It's so much time. You learn their story and who's involved and all the things. And their dog's name, how many times that dog gets fed a day. I'm sure So that's the thing is, I think that's what sets us apart and just makes that whole process better. Is that piece. And then we also know their deadline. So we are now partners with their real estate agent. So you tell us, Paige, closing is this date. You have to be, dead on. This is drop dead date. So then we back everything up so that no one's rushed into that timeline. Mm-hmm. The client's not responsible. You're not responsible. We know what that looks like. If we know, they're going to have a sale, so that needs 10 days. And so, okay, well, we go 10 days. And then it needs to be professionally cleaned for 2 days. All right, now we need 12 days. So you give us that. And so we are managing, again, back to all of those things. And so it becomes one of those, like, kind of set it and forget it. Once you've hired someone to manage those logistics, we're managing those logistics. And I think that's the other piece too, is that we're keeping tabs.
Mm-hmm.
Are you also, through the consultation period, helping clients understand space planning and what to take, what not to take, how to take something that's not physically going with you, right? Documenting that in a different alternative way.
Yeah.
Are you helping through that process? And if so, what does that look like?
We do custom floor planning. And I will say a lot of times people don't want to pay for, like, we have, digital renderings, we measure furniture and, this and that, and you can kind of move it around. We have that technology, but I will say most of our clients really just want us to do what we call general space planning. So we've been in this building enough, like they're moving to a specific senior living community that we're really familiar with. And we're like, okay, well, just so you know, underneath the window, there's a vent and we can't put anything against that. So like, we know, well, we're going to have AVs only on one wall, so we can only put it here. And So we help them walk through that process. But I will say the other thing that we try to help them do is really focus on what they want to keep. And so not so much focusing on what doesn't get to come. Because if they have the one chair that was whatever embroidered by their grandma or something like that on it, and it's a have to go. We make sure that gets there. So we do. And I will say most of our clients will take our recommendations and a lot of them won't. And so there are those moves that aren't, the HD TV reveal beautiful like we would like them to be. Those are really hard for us to leave the client feeling like that. But at the end of the day, again, we have to honor what they want to take. So yes, we do. We try really, really hard. And we're like, I feel like we're taking too many lamps. We don't have enough tables to put said lamps. Well, I just want to take them and then I'll get rid of them on the other end. We try to really talk them through that process. So you're paying for it twice. You're paying for us to move it there and then you're going to pay for us to take it away. So let's just make one decision. So yes, but then it doesn't always go to plan. Oh yeah, right.
Exactly. It's funny, you had mentioned that because you know the layout of the facility that they're moving to. So if you can help the listeners understand a little bit more about how that's an added bonus.
Oh yeah.
So we can kind of talk through that from your experience versus maybe just a couple men in a truck. So.
Yep. Well, and that's the other reason, back to that project management, is you, like Paige said, you hire a mover and 3 guys in a truck. We're going to show up at your door at 8 a.m. and okay, we're moving you from this address to this address. Great. That's it. That's all they're going to do. And so again, that is where Amy and us, from having so much experience, we know exactly, okay, you're moving into this community. We know the moving protocols. We know that we can't use the elevator from 11 to 1 because that's the lunch rush and we have to leave it open. So either we have to arrive and be done before 11 or we have to arrive after 1 and we've got the rest of the day. And so we can pre-plan ahead of time and say, okay, how are we going to pack this truck? Are we going to hold it overnight so that we can deliver at 8 a.m. in the morning, and have that runway? What is this going to look like? And then we also know what doors to use, what doors not to use. And more specifically, can I prop that door or can I not prop that door? And that's a huge one, right? Because not only is it a safety and security thing for all of the residents in the building, it's also a maintenance thing. You can't prop a door that has an automatic close without shutting it off, or else you're going to break the mechanics of the door. And so that is what our specialty goes into, is being able to identify those things.
And people think, oh, I'm going to hire a mover and it's going to be, they tell them the hourly rate over the phone. They're like, okay, well, I think this is going to take 4 hours. And we always laugh. We're like, oh gosh, based in what fact, And the thing is that we do our bids based in those facts. So you are not going to be surprised. So for example, there's a community that we work with that, like she said, has strict hours of operations for the elevators. There's only they only allow one vendor a day. So if you didn't reserve your day, you're, kind of out of luck there. And then where you park to where you go is a really long walk. So that takes a lot of time. And so we calculate that whole time in there. So that's the other thing. We like to give it as a project. We don't like to do it as one specific thing. Like we don't just say, this is our hourly rate. People always ask us, well, how was your bid? How do you guys even come up with that? It's based on your whole project. So we know you're moving into X community. We know how long it usually takes us, probably on the front end, probably 3 hours to load your truck, but we're going to that place. It'll probably take us at least 3 or 4 to offload your truck. So we calculate all of that in there so that there are no surprises versus hiring a moving company thinking it's going to take 4 hours and they took 6, 7, 8, 9 hours. And you're like, well, that wasn't, and again, that's what we always say. It comes to the same number. It always comes to the same number, and it's because people underestimate what it takes. Are there stairs? Are there, street parking where you can't we have some good friends of ours that have a moving company in New York City. And we're like, what a nightmare. Because can you imagine the parking? So they talked about, they literally paid $500 to the police to just leave them alone for 3 hours. So like, can you just leave
they can
us here?
park
They can illegally park for 3 hours.
Because that was their only option.
We're like, so those are the things that like, if you don't know, you don't know. And so I think that's the other piece of it is, we try to look at the whole picture.
Yep. Well, and I think that's the other coming in and out of communities and the walk and the stairs and the elevator. We also know, is that elevator new and big, and can it fit a lot of stuff?
Or is it tiny?
Do we have it? Yeah. Can we have it locked off for us or not? Or is
The story of New York.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Or is it a New York elevator, kind of like, the Friends episode where they're like lifting the couch and pivot, and it's like, nope, not going to fit up that stairwell. So, exactly.
Yep.
So, going just all of, again, it's all of those back end logistics that is why you have a manager, because you are not having to think through all of those. Because when you haven't moved for so many years, you think it's just packing, you think it's boxes, a truck, and some dollies. And it's so much more complicated than that.
Well, and we said, I think our biggest compliment is when people tell us, when we're ever in charge of a move, whoever's in charge, if it's her, if it's me, our managers, is when they say we look calm. It's like the duck, right? Like the duck on top of the water just looks like they're cruising, they're having a good time. But underneath, we're like, oh my gosh, because there's always something that happens, right? Something always happens that you didn't anticipate, that you weren't, prepared for, that you thought you planned ahead, and then the vendor didn't come with the right tool. And so you're like, oh my gosh, but we got to do it. So I think that's the other thing too, is that level of stress when you add it, especially onto an emotional move, is just, it's different. It's a different move. And so like, that's when you see families start to clash. It's when you start to see the husband and wife not getting along, and everyone's hungry and everyone's tired. And that's the thing too, where they're like, we love it when our clients are like, can we go grab lunch? And we're like, please
go,
because we don't want you hungry, or like our clients will be like, can we get you a snack? Cause you can just see how the day goes. And they're so overwhelmed. And I think that's the other thing too, is just, we manage that every day. So we can see those little signs of like when things are getting overwhelmed, and we don't ever want them to see us flustered. We absolutely are behind the scenes. We are absolutely flustered, but we just don't want them to see that.
Well, as professionals too. I mean, and that's part of the whole, whatever they're paying for, you're not paying for me to flip out. You're paying for me to be calm and to make sure that it's going, you don't need to know what's going on.
Okay. So drawing on the reflections of what you've learned through this whole process, what have you learned about aging and households and decision making? What do you take home from every day in terms of, lessons that you apply in your own lives?
Get rid of everything.
Burn it.
Keep nothing. No.
we always joke that it does keep us. I'm a minimalist. I am definitely not a thing person, but I've never been a thing person. But what the other thing is one of the things that we've over time, and one of our clients who we actually had on our podcast, I went and did a consultation with her, and it's one of those type of situations where you go in and like some of it you just don't get. Why are we attached to the thing? And it just doesn't make sense. Well, she is an author. She's written 7 books, and she gave me one of her books on her way out. And I went home and I read it, and I'm just bawling. And I call in Cierra, and I'm like, oh my God, I get why we are so into the piano. And I'm like, what we've learned, and we talk to our staff all the time, is we are entering into a sacred space. Anyone's home is their sanctuary. It's where they find peace. It's where they grieve. It's where they celebrate. It's where they have holidays and traditions. It is a sacred place. And so what a gift that people allow us into that, because it is very humbling when somebody is, especially when they are no longer physically able to, or mentally or emotionally able to. That is such a gift. And I also think that for adult children who, they feel so overwhelmed, to know that we are an extension of their family. We hear that all the time from adult children that can't be here, is you were the adult daughter when we couldn't be. And so I think that's been the biggest thing, is when you go into it, while they can drive you nuts and they have too much stuff and they don't understand the process and they ask a million questions and, they question our numbers and they da. At the end of the day, it's because they're scared. It's because they're nervous. It's because, they're grieving, maybe they lost their spouse. whatever the situation is. And so I think we always have to remind ourselves that we are entering into a sacred space. And I think when you do have that mindset, it changes things. It changes your level of tolerance, I think, for some of that stuff that internally, can put families over the edge during a move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I would say the same. I mean, I think for me, I am not as much of a minimalist. I am more the archivist of my family. I'm the one that does the ancestries. Like, I'm the one that I'm like, yes, I want the dishes. But I've also realized, again, it's that emotional. Like, I took my grandmother's dishes because I was grieving my grandmother, and I used them for a short amount of time. And then I was like, you know what? I don't like these dishes. And I didn't hold on to them because I was like, it is okay to get rid of the stuff. Like, I still have the memories of my grandmother. I see the plates. It's hilarious. I see them in ARC when I go in there with my kids, and they're like, it's ARC plates. And I'm like, well, maybe they ended up here, and I'm like, yeah. And it'll always bring me fond memories, but like, I don't have to keep the stuff anymore, and I can do it in other ways. Like, and especially now with technology, you can take pictures and you can still have those memories without keeping piles and piles and, boxes. The
other thing that I was going to say is what I've learned about aging too, is that so much of that generation had to do it yourself. Like, it was the rite of passage. It was the badge of honor to do it yourself. And I feel like, what a gift that people can give themselves to treat themselves to something like our service, because they've earned it. They have earned whatever that might be, that extra set of hands and help. And what we love too is senior living, while it has a bad rap on certain levels, it's changing, it's morphing. And it also, like, our other favorite thing that always happens is we'll be there and we're unpacking and people are coming by and they're saying hello and they're introducing themselves, which just like makes me so happy, because it's so isolating sometimes to be in your home. You don't realize how isolated you were until you go to a place where there is community. Yep. And then our clients are like, can we go to happy hour? And we're like, please go to happy hour. Or, the Christmas where they're playing cards at the table, the family's playing cards at the table while we're busy bees all around them. I mean, taking those photos, we just did a move where we moved, very emotional, and they were sitting outside, right outside the window. They were sitting outside in the table and chairs that they had donated to the community. And I snapped a photo right outside the window. And the adult daughter who was struggling with all the things, I said, this is why we do what we do, is because you got to enjoy your mom. Yep. And so I think that's the other thing too, is what a gift you can give yourself to not have to. Beer and pizza doesn't work when you're in your 70s and 80s. Yeah. It just doesn't. Yep. And so I think that's the other thing, is they've earned it.
Yeah. And I think too, in that generation, how you might need, you don't want to give something away, or you want to take it with you because you might need that someday. Mm-hmm. Or, I think of my mother's pantry downstairs that has, 10 cans of, peas or whatever, like
cream of soups.
Do you need all of that? Yeah. But it's a sense of, you never know when I'm going to need it. And from that mindset. Totally. So that's got to be difficult. And especially, you had said at one point, sale, like, so what are you talking about, an estate sale versus like, because sometimes you have clients that might say, I think I just want to do a garage sale. Mm-hmm. So how do you handle that piece of it?
Burn it. No, just kidding. Don't do it. We worked with great, amazing vendors. We do not do that service. Yeah. There are a lot of move managers who do that in-house. That is not a gift we have, nor is that something we ever want to take on, because there's so much to know in the sales space of what something is worth, what it will sell for, who are the people who want it, how do you get in front of them, what are the best platforms. And so we know enough to be dangerous. We go in and we will say, you know what, this person's probably a really great candidate. So we'll send photos off with permission. We send photos off to our estate liquidator and we're like, hey, take a look, tell us what you think. And then he can give us the hard truth, which is what we love about that. He can give us the hard truth of like, there's nothing good here. Or there's a few gems, so maybe we could do liquidation, or I want my hands all over this job. So we kind of get that from him. And so we're able to talk to the client, and we always hedge on the fact that it's not necessarily worth what you paid for it, unfortunately, but we can see what you have left. And most of our clients take the gems with them, right? Yeah. So the mid-century modern furniture that's really hip and in style right now is typically what they want to take with them. Mm-hmm. So you shouldn't not take it. You should take what you want. And so just giving people, I think, that mindset of really what your stuff is worth. And a lot of times our clients want to do things in phases. We talk about phases all the time. Phase 1 is we need to get you moved and settled with all the things you love. And so their focus is on phase 1. And so when you talk about phase 2 or phase 3, sometimes people don't need to sell their homes right away. We have the luxury of time, and we can, kind of sort that out. And the family comes over Thanksgiving, they take what they want, and, this, that, and the other. Not always the case. And so we also help navigate their timeline, like we said. And sometimes they're not eligible, as you guys know. You're not eligible for a sale. Maybe your community doesn't allow it, your HOA. Maybe there's not enough time. They have to sell that home because they need the closing to be able to roll it into the next thing, or their care, or whatever the case may be. And so we kind of help them navigate what that looks like. But the sale itself, garage sales, they don't do well in Colorado. They just don't. I lived in New Mexico for 7 years, and you could open your garage at 6 a.m. and it would be sold out by 7 a.m. and you made several $100. Yep. That is not the case in Colorado. And so it's also understanding your market and your area. If you've ever had a garage sale, you'll kind of know, like, you can have stuff for sale for 3 days. My neighbor just did. And I wanted to be like, burn it. No. But no, it's like you end up just donating it anyway or giving it away for free. And so I think just knowing your area and what works well will also help with a sale.
And you handle that piece of it from a donation perspective too, if they say, okay.
Yep.
Because really when you are going to downsize, there's 3 categories. There's keep, there's donate, there's sell, and I guess 4 because trash, right? So trash is just trash. It goes out. We're going to help them figure out what's the best avenue to sell this. And then if it's donatable, what's the best avenue to donate it? And then obviously keep is what they're going to take with them. And so we have, that is our list of vendors in our back pocket to say, yep, we need this junk hauler, or nope, actually we need this junk hauler because we have this and this. And really in our goal in all of this too, which is huge for our clients, is that we work with people that are green as well. We don't want just everything to go to the landfill, right? That is just really unethical as far as like eco and everything like that. And so that's where we know, okay, this dining room table is not coming with us, but I know that when I send it to this, and they call themselves junk haulers, I think we need a new name because it's not junk. But I know that table is going to go to someone's home, and they're going to have many more memories around it. And that is the biggest assurance that we have with our clients, is that it's not just going away. To your point, I might need this someday, or the sentimental value behind it.
And donating your stuff is not free. We debunk that. We try to talk about that all the time because there's so many people who think, well, I'm just going to give it all to donation. I'm like, if you can find a donation center that will come pick up all that stuff, please let me know who that is. Because that just doesn't exist. Yeah. And so then they'll piecemeal this, and the amount of time and money and energy they end up spending, to do it is, again, like totally up to you if that's what you want to do. And there are people who feel very strongly about certain charities, and we absolutely will help them with that initiative. But they have to put in their mind that it costs money to get it there. So you're going to have to deliver it to them. They're not going to come pick it up. So we're happy to do that. And so a lot of times, that is something that they feel very passionate about, and will absolutely help them accomplish. If they don't really care or don't have, then again, we just plug in with our resources that we already know.
I have heard a thread throughout this entire conversation that clearly moving is not just about boxes. It's about the love and the care and the dignity and the honor that you're giving to your clients and their families. So what is next for a move handled with care? Where do you want to go in the future with your business?
That's a great question.
Ooh, that is.
I'll maybe answer mine and then you can say yours.
Yeah.
Let's see if they collide. And
Okay.
If they don't, we have to have a work session.
Don't listen to what she's saying.
I will say we always say, like, you have to decide what you do and who you serve. And I think we are really good at fast and efficient moves for seniors. That is really what we're really good at. But at the same time, we also have other things that we do that we love as well. And so we are seeing a shift in our generation of hiring professionals. And so we've been getting into the traditional residential world where, busy families, again, mom and dad don't have to take off work. Little ones can go off to daycare and they're moved and set up and her kitchen's ready and she comes home and she makes dinner. We also love doing like high-end residential where I should say more complex residential where there's multiple vendors. Maybe there's an art dealer and we crate things and things like that. And so I think that will also help us grow as far as like what we can do and how we service people. But I think our biggest goal is we would love to be the move management team in Denver. just the go-to move management team in Denver for whatever that might look like. We'd love to grow outside of this, but I will say Denver right now is our big push is to really, I think, if nothing else, it's education, because how many times have we done a presentation where people are like, I didn't even know this existed. And so the education piece, getting people aware of that service. And also I think for our professional, referrals like you all, is that we earn your trust so that there is no other person that you recommend, because we just do it the best. And I think that's our, we're 12 employees with our company. We do partner with a moving company, so that's where we get some of that labor, but we'd love to double that in the next 5 years for sure. So that we can service more and do more and make sure that people are moving into senior living in what we think the best way possible.
Yeah. I mean, I would really say the exact same, because we really want to be the leaders of this industry for the next generation. We were just at our conference in Dallas, and we were saying how the OGs that, when NASM first started, their companies were maybe just a couple years old, and there was like 5 of them. And we've learned so much from them, but the moving industry has changed so much. And the management industry and the organization industry has changed so much that we would love to be the industry leaders and those experts, because going back to your question of why, are we regulated, is that there is not a lot of barrier to entry into this, because really all you need is just yourself. And then it kind of grows, and then you start to get, office space and all of this different things. But because there's not a lot of barrier to entry, there's a lot of people out there that just do it. And I think you guys can agree with in your industry and real estate agent, you're like, I'm just going to sell a house, just one a year. Mm-hmm. And they really don't know what they're doing at the end of the day. And they are really doing a disservice to not only the clients, but the industry as a whole. And we would love to be the person that we're always the one that people are calling, because they know that we are going to do it. We are going to do it correctly. And not only that, we want to be able to teach, and we want to be able to mentor so that we can have regulation, so that we know that this industry is something that people who are coming in are going to do it, and they're going to do it correctly.
You certainly are students of your industry, and it sounds in meeting with you, talking with you today, that you're constantly looking to raise the bar. As we often say that we're trying to do is raising the bar of excellence and doing and serving your clients. Not only, you're serving it with a heart, right? Mm-hmm. It's just the care and concern that you have when you're meeting with these individuals. It kind of, in speaking with you, it shines through with, your story.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you.
We always say the best part of our move is always the hug and the check at the end of the day. Matt Paxton says that, the hug and the check. Our favorite thing we always say when we walk people in is we always say, welcome home. And I think that's our initiative, is to make it feel like home, because those moves can feel institutional. Those moves can feel forced. And we want you to feel welcomed, and, to have that, we take some people out of some really sad situations and put them in a place where we feel good at the end of the day, putting them there. We're like, man, it's cleaner. It's not part of our job, but it is part of our job to make it cleaner than we left it. When you're living by yourself for too long, things go by the wayside, and, things don't get dusted, and things don't get, cleared off. And so I think that's the other thing, is that we always feel good when we leave folks. We've done some really hard, dirty jobs, and that has been very humbling for us as well. It's been great it's challenging, but great. We did some HUD housing a couple of years ago. So we moved Section 8 housing. They were doing a reconstruction, and that was eye-opening for us, because it was seniors. It was seniors, but, different socioeconomic status and things like that, and that they should also have the same dignity. We also belong to a nonprofit called Safe Moves for Seniors. It's having a hard time getting some legs in our area, just simply because, like anything, we're running a business, so it's hard to also run a nonprofit. But the message behind it is that everyone should be able to move with this level of dignity, even if they can't afford it. So it's a non-for-profit that we basically move underserved seniors into senior living that otherwise would not be able to afford it, and they have to leave their things behind. So that's been kind of, a new initiative for us. And again, it's based on fundraising and all the things. But I think I'm glad that you see that, because that is definitely at the core of who we are. We want to make sure that we are leaving the world a little better, even if it's just, people don't see it, but even if it's just through moving. So,
right.
Yeah.
through cardboard boxes.
Through cardboard boxes. Yeah.
Not Amazon boxes.
Right?
Yeah.
Nope. No professional grade cardboard boxes and not a trash bag.
How do our consumers find you? Best.
So they can go to our website, amovehandledwithcare.com. They can call our office and speak to Amy. So that's 303-471-7333. We're also on LinkedIn.
Social media. We're
Social
on
media,
Facebook,
Facebook.
and Instagram. We also offer a lot of things for people to just kind of dabble in some of this kind of stuff. We have a podcast of our own. It's called Making Space for Podcast. It's on YouTube and Spotify. You can get to the links directly from our website if you go to the resource tab. We have a blog. If you'd love to be a part of our newsletter, even if you're just curious, we'd love to put you on our, send us an email, go to our website, send us an email. We'd love to add you to our newsletter. We always try to do some tips and tricks. We also, Cierra and I do a lot of speaking engagements in the Denver metro area, where we're trying to just educate people on the art of downsizing mindfully and things like that. So we always have events going on. That's also on our website. There's an events tab as well. So yeah, there's lots of different ways we like for people we know that this can sometimes take several times to hear it, or the belief in yourself that you can. And so we try to provide as much educational stuff in there so that you feel empowered to make that decision when you're ready to call us.
Yep.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your
Yeah.
time, your patience with our technical challenges today and all of that.
Yeah.
We look forward to watching you grow and bloom.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
Cierra, Paige, thank you so much for an honest and inspiring conversation. You reminded us that moving isn't just about logistics. It's about people. It's about memories and the courage to embrace change. Thank you so much for reminding us that home is more than a place. It's a feeling that we can carry forward.
And if you're listening today and facing a move or helping a parent or loved one downsize, remember, you don't have to do it alone. You can connect with A Move Handled with Care for a complimentary consultation. They can be reached at amovehandledwithcare.com. You'll also find them on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. All the links are in our show notes.
Because when it comes to change, the right support doesn't just move boxes, it moves hearts.
We are Tasha Beckman and Nicole Robilotto, and this has been another episode of the Empowered Elder Podcast, where every home has a story and every story matters.
Until next time, take care, stay grounded, and remember, every transition can be handled with care.